Welcome to Craft Beer Storm,
a podcast dedicated to educating the masses across the planet on what real beer is.
Hey guys, this is Mike from Craft Beer Storm. I'm also the founder and brewer at Beara Brewing Co in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Today we're going west. So we are going to Tennessee. We have Delta Sunshine Brewing Company. We have Todd and Allison, who are associated with that, and it's a good podcast. Get their perspectives. Allison is the brewmaster there. She's awesome, and Todd is the founder. And let's get to it. Here we go. Hey, we're here today with Todd Paden, who's the founder, and Allison Higi is the brewmaster and owner at Delta Sunshine Brewing Company, located in Memphis, Tennessee. How you guys doing?
Good. Great. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad we could connect and you get on the podcast. You know, we're just not limiting ourselves to New England or any region. You know, I want to try to get perspective and people's ideas, you know, around the country, also around the world. I'm trying to get some German brewers on too. So we're working on an English guy, so we're trying to get them on as well. But I'm glad you could connect. Yeah, I'm glad you could connect me today. So maybe get started with your story, Delta Sunshine Brewing Company. How'd you get started? The idea, you know, where are you now? Where you think you're heading?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I went to college out in Montana at the University of Montana in Missoula back in the early mid-'90s, and kind of fell in love with craft beer at that point. Growing up in the southeast or in Memphis area, there really weren't a whole lot of craft beer options, and so going out west and being out there for an extended period of time really kind of started the love affair with craft beer.
So where were you in Montana, you said?
In Missoula at the University of Montana, and also lived over in Big Sky in the summers and worked for a gentleman that was from Memphis. And I was working mainly in the either bartending or in the outdoor industry. I grew up in the restaurant world. My dad's a chef, and
Awesome.
So youngest memories are in friends' restaurants. And then stayed in that same kind of career path in food service, working across the United States for different companies, and decided about a year ago to dust off a business plan. And instead of going to these restaurants and these people that own restaurants around the country and talk to them about food products, why not take what I love, craft beer, and in turn find an incredible brewmaster, even though I know how to brew, kind of like opening up a restaurant. I know how to cook, but I'd go hire the best of the best in terms of the chef.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we found Allison. That's the philosophy that Nate and I take around kind of every decision around the company, is making sure that we're doing the best that we can. So number one is, you know, kind of that's how the love affair started with it. And business plan was pretty much finished about a year ago right now, and we're going to start brewing here in the next, hopefully, about week. So
Cool. Now, do you serve food at your, or planning to serve food at your place?
no, we're actually going to again take kind of a different approach on the brew pub piece of the business. With the volume that we're looking to do, we're going to be more of a production type facility. We will have a tap room later on down the road that will be really, really nice. But in terms of putting brew pubs into areas of town where there is a little bit more restaurant / brewery traffic, we're not going to be producing our larger batches in those facilities. But the brew pubs will have 7 nights a week live blues music. Again, that's one of the big pieces of our company as well. The Delta lifestyle, laid back, sunshine, wonderful, beautiful days, and of course the birthplace of blues, which pretty much every music genre has, come from. And so we would be amiss not to kind of incorporate that into the philosophy of giving back to those communities from Memphis all the way down to the Delta, where people are already helping kids out right now, 18 and under, in different programs, organizations, and we'll be able to step in and hopefully help out a lot as well.
Absolutely.
So,
That's awesome. Giving back to the community is important. We try to do that as well. So Allison, what's your story? How'd you get involved?
Well, I kind of have a sort of a different background. I went to college and studied biology and chemistry, and after college, I worked in a hospital lab, and I found it to be quite sad. Everyone was sick and dying, and the medical field was not for me. So I had a friend who was a manager of a brewery, and he was like, well, if you don't like working in the lab, why don't you come wait tables in my brewery? It's really a lot of fun. You'll have a good time and you'll make some good money. So I went to work as a server in a brew pub, and I did that for a while. And that's really how I got to know craft beer. I was never a big craft beer drinker until I worked with it and sold it and, got to taste it and try it and see, how it was made. So then at the Christmas party one year, a couple of years in, the brewer got a little too inebriated and he got into a fight and he got fired. And so the next day, my friend was like, we need someone to make beer like today. And I know that you have a science background and you have arm muscles. Do you want to give it a shot? And I said, sure. And I've been doing it ever since.
That's cool. So you just jumped in and started.
So I just jumped in and started brewing. I stayed with that company for about another 5 years. And because of my science background, I've done a lot of work not only with brewing, but with quality as well, with the lab side, the lab testing side of brewing. So
it's very important, yeah.
Yeah, it's super important. It just depends on, the size of your brewery, how much, science you can justify sort of putting behind your product. So I sort of bounced around then after I left that place. I worked for several different breweries, both large and small, and I found myself as a brewmaster of a little brewery in Saigon, Vietnam.
Really?
And
Wow.
I spent about a year and a half brewing in Saigon, and that was a total crazy trip. It was.
How did you get to Saigon? I had a guy on the last podcast, and his brother lived in Tokyo, and then they tried to open a brewery in Tokyo. So everybody's out east. I don't know how they get out there, but how'd you get out into Saigon?
Well, I go to the same. I usually go to Brewbound if I'm looking for a beer job, and I saw an ad for this little brewery in Vietnam, and I was just in a place in my life where I was looking for something different, and I was excited by the prospect of traveling, and I knew Vietnam would be really, really different than anything I'd ever done before.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a trip. But after a while, I got pretty homesick, and my visa was going to expire, and I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do, if I was going to come home to America or what I wanted to do. And I went back to the same website that I always go to, and that's where I found Todd and Nate. And we started talking last fall-ish about stuff. I was still over in Asia at the time, and sort of came up with the game plan, and I wrote some recipes for some beers from a hostel room in Cambodia, and really excited to finally get to brew those beers here in the next couple of weeks. So it's been a long time coming, but here we all are.
That's cool. And the power of the internet, right? I mean, we connected over the internet. Like, I didn't know you, and I'm like, hey, I got a podcast called Craft Beer Storm. You want to come on? And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And then we got you guys on today. So it's the power of the internet. It's unbelievable what it can do. But that's amazing that you have that experience. So listen, getting back to the restaurant thing, or actually your system. What kind? How big is going to be your brew house?
When we do move into our own brew house, because in terms of raising the capital to build out from ground floor up, we took a little bit different approach, since we do have some good contacts out there in the restaurant world, not in the retail portion of the business, but definitely in the restaurant portion of the world. We're using contract brewing.
Okay, so you're going to start with contract brewing. Okay.
Yeah, while we build our facility out, and because when we do build our facility out, it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 60-barrel system.
Oh, wow. That's
So
big. So I think,
it
yeah,
is. It
just to
is.
give everybody an idea what contract brewing is, it's a brewer would get, I guess you have your license and everything, the TTB, and
Correct. Yes, we have our brewer's
and you
license.
have
We're
the
just brewing in with
Tennessee,
their
the
equipment.
Tennessee license. So what people do and what brewers do if they don't want to start brewing on their own system, because it is very capital intensive, is they go to other brewers who have the capacity and give them their recipe and figure out the labels and then have them brew the beer and then have somebody, I guess you have a distributor lined up as well, right?
Well, yes, and going into 7 states on day one, we've got multiple
Wow,
distributors.
7
Yes,
states. Whoa,
yes.
you're going big. Well, you said 60 barrel. I'm like, wow, you're gonna produce a
Right.
lot
Yeah,
of beer.
we're
You're gonna do
yeah,
a
we're
lot of beer.
yeah, it is. It's going to be a good amount of volume, but with the way that we understand the restaurant industry and contacts that we have, it's not a whole lot of touch points for that many units. And
Right.
in a scenario like a city like Memphis, where we are, there's a lot more units of places that we know that we've grown up with the people, or we've got friends that work in the business, or they own the restaurants themselves. So Memphis is unique versus the other 6 states that we'll be in. So
So what are the states you're gonna be in? You have Tennessee and
sure, yeah, we're going to start off in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama.
cool. So it's
The Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida will come pretty soon, within about right around year one at a late point.
Really? Okay. So and when do you plan to open your brewery? When do you think that date's going to be, or you're still trying to
Oh
get
yeah,
some-
we're already looking at site selection right now. So even though it's a year and a half or so out from say today, if we're going to use a timeline period, it would be about a year and a half, just from the standpoint of going in, if we're going to go into a pre-built existing location, or if we're going to build up from slab up. A lot of different variables to take into account. That we're working with contractors and architects that kind of specialize in the brewery and manufacturing kind of industries.
Right.
So they understand from an efficiency standpoint, dock space standpoint, and just all the other logistical things that go into, and also giving Allison a space. This is what I promised her from the front end, is that her job is to make great beer. If there's a light bulb that needs to be changed, if there's, stuff that needs to be swept up, we're going to have a staff and a crew that's going to handle those things so everybody can do their job very, very well.
Mhm.
And we're not going to be in a cramped situation. I've walked in, I've done, starting this business, I went around to about 100 different breweries across the country.
Wow.
Asked the owners 3 questions. And every single one of them, one of the first things out of their mouth said, if they could roll back the hands of time to day one, they would have structured the building and the growth a little bit better than what they ended up expecting and seeing.
Right.
So we're not going to mess that up. We're not going to have Allison cramped. We're not going to have her on 45-foot ladders with no protection.
Yeah, that's
we
the
need
two
her around
things
in space.
brewers where they run out of space and then money.
It's
Cash flow.
capital intensive.
Cash flow and capital.
I
think you're doing the right thing by going contract brewing route to begin with, and getting the beer out there and just seeing, testing it out. I guess get out into those states, but see how it sells and what sells well. Maybe tweak the recipes and just without investing like a load of money into it. I mean, because it's very capital intensive, especially the build out. What you're saying, take your budget and multiply it by 2 at least. And then you'll come out to you'll come out to a normal figure because it's unbelievable. But when do you think the beer is going to be out though? You say contract brewing.
Yeah, we're gonna and with the situation and with the not to get too many details about our contract brewing situation, but Allison will be brewing in our situation.
You'll be brewing at the contract brewer.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
We'll be involved in the process. So.
Okay.
But yeah, we're going to start brewing. We're just waiting, like everybody else has to do in the industry, waiting on signatures from government officials. We hope are coming back really quickly. And we'll be on the schedule to brew here in the next week or 2. Our longest beer that we're going to launch out of the 3 we're going to launch with takes about a month. So we're looking at about mid-September-ish
Yeah.
to have beer in kegs. We're
Cool.
only going kegs since we're only going into food service to start off with. As market demands it, we'll start to get into bottles and cans.
Yeah.
But it's just a different world to play in the industry.
Yeah.
And then, so into the marketplace, hopefully within about 8 to 9 weeks from now at the latest, actually in restaurants in those states. And on our website, we'll have every location that people can find our beers listed. So it's going to be pretty exciting next 6 months, year and a half, 2 years.
That's cool. Yeah, you're going to have your beer out fairly quickly, I guess. 2 months is
Yeah,
now.
we're going to have to be out there supporting them. And, the restaurant industry always needs people to help them support their business, depending on what their goals are in terms of growth or what they're focusing on across the entire restaurant, not just about the bar, not just about the food, but all of it together. And so we're going to make great beers. We're going to do all these other great fun things as well, but we're really going to support our restaurant partners and make sure that, we're helping them with the goals that they need to
Yes.
the business. So
Yes, find out. Now, what kind of beer is selling well in your neck of the woods there? I know up here it's always these IPAs. Now they have the New England IPA. It's like milkshakes. That's what I talk. I talk to brewers
hazy
about it. They're like,
IPAs.
"Yeah, I'm making a milkshake because everybody wants a milkshake." I'm like, "Oh, all right." Sometimes like some guys make these IPAs and they just load it up with hops, like a pound per gallon or something. It's like ridiculous. They just want to try to get that. But that's just a waste of hops. I mean, I don't know. It's overkill, I think. I don't know. I like
Well,
New
point
England
it is.
IPAs. We try- but it kind of loses the whole thing. But what's popular down there in your neck of the woods?
Well, I'll weigh in and then I'll let Allison kind of give you her perspective since she's been in town for a little while now. But I mean, when you're basically from where we live in Memphis, across the southeast and going, in a southern direction in Texas or into Florida, it's a hot climate. There's really only about 3 months out of the year where it cools down enough to where you want to have and sit around and enjoy some darker, bigger beers. Majority of the population, if you look at the data that the Brewers Association puts out, is per capita, the Southeast, people are drinking the most amount of beers per person. But
Is that right?
they're drinking domestic beers or big beers because of the way they drink. They drink light, they're crisp, they're refreshing. They're meeting what the consumer is wanting, like in a beer.
Pilsners, lagers, things of that nature.
Exactly, blondes. And so, like, when you do start to see these craft beers pop up, and like you've got a couple of bigger breweries in the Southeast, what you'll see are probably their biggest sellers are the ones that people can sit back and enjoy quite a few of when it's 90 degrees and 100% humidity. Coffee milk stout just isn't the most enjoyable thing on those days.
I can understand that, but I like stouts. I mean, but I understand in your climate there, it would make sense that they want lighter beers, and we're trying to get people to understand that craft beer is not just heavy. Like drink a stout and it's like a loaf of bread. I mean, craft beer could mean there's like 200 styles. If you look at the Brewers Association. So, I mean, a really good lager, a really good Pilsner, I mean, that's something special, Yep.
And then we're also going to have 2 other styles of an amber as well as a pale ale. So.
Oh, right. I saw the pale ale on your website. Yep.
Right. So, and then, so that's kind of what I see from growing up in this area, moving away from the area for a long time, coming back, seeing what the other breweries are doing. Not only in Memphis, but Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Nashville. Just some great breweries in this part of the country too. And they're leaning toward the lighter stuff. But again, I'll let kind of Allison. What have you seen since your big long 2 months so far in the South?
That I've been in Memphis. Well, yeah, I was just going to point out that, it is very similar to Vietnam, where I just came from. Vietnam's about 95 degrees at noon and midnight all year round. So You see a lot of that same thing where And there's, craft breweries popping up there, and a lot of them are sticking to lighter beers. That's what sells well there too. So there is
Right.
sort of that correlation to this part of the country where it is real hot and humid. I'm from northern Indiana, so you can drink stouts 8 months out of the year there and be just fine. But it is definitely different down here where it's so warm and humid. But I do like that. So in terms of the beers that we're going to be brewing, like Todd said, we're going to do a light lager, and I'm real excited about this. Sort of in my old brewer wisdom days now, I like to brew the simple lagers. I think that they're more delicate, they're more sophisticated to brew. I mean, anyone can throw, as you said, a billion hops in a beer and call it an IPA, but I think to brew the lighter styles takes more of finesse. It's more, you can't hide behind, dark malts. You can't hide behind a lot of hops. So your processes have to be spot on.
I get it. Your lagers and the pilsners, I mean, they have to be really good, and you have to know what you're doing to do that, And a lot of people, like you said, they hide. They just throw hops in it. It tastes bad.
Yeah,
You dry hop it with like 10 pounds of hops. I mean, it's like, but I understand what you're saying, and it's the whole going back to the German, like the purity law and the beers that are made in Germany. I mean, they're delicious. I lived in England for about 5 years, and I've had a lot of great beers, Belgian beers, German beers, delicious, really high quality beer. Which is,
and I think that's what's key too. Once we have our own brew house, we can, I can have a little more creative freedom. I've got a whole list of crazy fun ideas, and I'm, the longer I'm in this area of the country, I'm getting a feel from the people about what will work well in beer, and what, sort of nuancy kind of things can we do to brew some great beers. But the three big ones that we're starting with, I think, they're just good. They're just going to be good, well-made beer. They're not going to be overwhelming. We're going to do a really great amber, and we're going to do a nice, clean, pale ale.
Very nice.
Nothing overly hoppy, and then the light lager. So I'm excited to start to build off this basis of just like these three, like well-made, very good, easy drinking light beers, and then we can use that momentum to do some crazy things in the future.
Yeah.
But
no, I know, like in your neck of the, your part of the country, I think these make the most sense. Like these up here in the Northeast are like, what are you doing, dude? You got to make like this double IPA, and it has to be cloudy. And even when I go into restaurants, they're like, well, what's selling? If you give me a double IPA, I'll give you a tap line, no problem. So we had to make two. We made two different types of double IPAs. They're selling very well. They're very expensive beer, though. I mean, you got to use a lot of hops and
a lot of hops, right?
Grain. I mean, and you can't really charge more, because there's competition.
Right.
So, but I think these are good beers to start off with. And you're talking about local. What kind of? Do you think you use some local ingredients in your beer by any chance? Or?
We will definitely eventually get to that point. For these first three, we're just pretty basic. We are going to incorporate the use of some local rice in our lager, which I'm really excited about. I think that is another takeaway from Asia for me. Was I drank probably 40 different rice lagers while I was over there, and I filled out BJCP score sheets for them all, by the way, FYI, just to just to get a sense of the nuance of all the different, macro produced Asian lagers. I wasn't sure if I'd be in that part of the country again, or that part of the world again. So I wanted to have a good basis of a lot of what I drank there. So I tried to record as much as I could. So for our lager, we're going to use Mississippi River Delta rice, which I'm super excited about. So that's going to be our
awesome,
Delta local ingredient. And I think, rice has sort of been a kind of debated topic, I think, in as far as brewers go. Some brewers are very Reinheitsgebot and they, don't like rice. But I think, I like the idea of doing a Mississippi River Delta rice in our lager. It makes it local, it makes it regional. I made sure when I sourced the rice, it comes from Arkansas. I made 100% sure of that. So.
Yeah, but I think in your case, the rice makes a lot of sense. A lot of the bigger breweries use rice because it's cheap and they can, make a ton of beer
Oh.
with it. And
I would say
It is not cheap.
Chinese rice is cheap. American rice is less cheap
Chinese, right? Okay.
than Chinese rice
Cool.
is cheap.
If somebody's got some very well-priced American rice, we will take as much as you have.
Pre-gelatinized.
That's right.
Well-priced American rice. Well, you can work with like local farmers and stuff like that. I think it's cool. We use some local honey in our stuff. We got a beekeeper. Actually, I had one of the podcasts with him, and then the maple syrup guy. We had a podcast with him, just to understand the process and how they make maple syrup and bee.
Yeah.
Like the guy knows so much about bees. You should listen to that podcast. It's ridiculous. But
Yeah, the bee guys are. We've got a good connection with a bee purist. Cameron Dinkin has Linden Farms down at near Greenville, Mississippi, in the Delta, and he grows sunflowers and all kinds of other crops. He's
Right.
got a large amount of bees and does honey that we're going to use at some
Yeah.
point.
if you
like a
infuse
honey
some of that honey
brown
in
or-
these beers, that'd be
Yeah.
delicious. Yeah, just experiment.
Yeah.
I think it'd be awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, if you have your tap room, I think you have a lot of. It's great to experiment with stuff. I like experimenting. It's food. So, and then what do you think about the challenges of for brewers today, like in the U.S. and also worldwide? I mean, what do you think? I think we talked about space before, and then capital and competition.
I
What
would
do you think
say-
about brewers? Yeah.
I would say in America, I think it's market saturation. That's what concerns me the most. And that's kind of why I'm excited to take, to have this brewery in this part of the country, because I feel like it is a little bit underrepresented as far as craft beer across America goes. I would have been a little hesitant to move across the world for this job if it were in California or Colorado or
Yeah.
Washington, but I was excited about the prospect of this area of the country.
So how
And
many
so-
how many breweries are in Memphis right now? Are they?
Oh, Todd, do you know? I'm not sure. I've not been here very long.
Or
I would
in
say a
your region?
handful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so you've got Ghost River. That's probably the oldest. It was part of Bosco's brewery at one point. You've got Wiseacre. Does a great job. Everybody in Memphis does a great job. Memphis Made.
I'm drinking a
Small
high
Town,
cotton right now.
Meddlesome, and High Cotton.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, so
forgetting
there's-
somebody. That
there's-
6 will be the 7th.
All
There's
right.
there's really just a few. And so there's
Yeah.
definitely still room for more good beer here, which I like that. And that was one thing I liked working in Asia. In Saigon, there were, I think, 15 craft breweries for 15 million people. So there was no shortage of
Oh wow.
clientele or growth potential there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the problems we had there were significantly different than the problems we had in America. There, the problems were, access to hops. None of the indigenous beer brewing ingredients come from Vietnam. So 100% of everything except for the water was imported. So that was sort of the challenge to brewing in Southeast Asia. And so to come back to America and brew, it's really nice. I feel
Yeah.
like I have access to so much here that I didn't have.
Everything's at your
there, and-
fingertips here. Yeah. So how's
Yeah,
the water?
yeah.
How's like the water in Vietnam? And did you have any filtration? And I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
I'm just thinking about,
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna have
So
fun with this.
yeah.
yeah.
I'm just
My-
curious.
the-
I don't know.
The brewery I brewed at was on an island called Kenya, and that's right where
really?
the Saigon River meets the South China Sea. So all
Wow.
of the water on this island was brought in via tanker truck.
Oh, geez.
So, and Vietnam's not known for you can't drink the tap water there anyways. So our water that we would get, we would have these 5,000 liter storage tanks. And as soon as water came to the island, we would fill our tanks, because there would be times when the truck crashed or something happened
God.
and we didn't get water that week. And if you don't have water, you can't brew beer. So we would pre-filter it like 4 times and then put it through RO. And then work with RO from there. And even then, like, I think every once in a while we would have a problem, but most of the time it worked out okay. And as I was saying before, like, the demand was so great, and that we didn't have a lot of beer like sitting around. So whatever beer we made was gone and sold. Like, our kegs didn't last longer than 3 weeks. So we sort of had that on our side. But yeah, the water there is definitely not the best. And a good friend of mine, Dave Byrne, who's the brewmaster of Pasteur Street Brewing in Saigon, he won a World Beer Cup in 2016, and I think he should get extra special points for winning a World Beer Cup with Vietnamese water, because
I want to have him. I want to have him on Craft Beer Storm. Can you connect us?
Yeah, Dave's a great guy. Absolutely. Yeah, he's cool.
That'd be awesome.
The water in Vietnam, I put some water in a water bottle once and then like left it in the closet and came back a couple days later and it turned black. So that's the tap water. That's what you get from the tap in Vietnam.
You said you filtered it and then you put it through another process, I think you said, RO or?
Yeah, RO, reverse osmosis. Yeah, we would pre-filter 4 times just with like millipore filters, like just the physical barrier filters.
And then you would definitely boil it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I better stop. All right, but I think I'm just curious about the water and how you handled it. But you had to put it through a lot of processes, and how's Memphis water? I guess or the water in your region. I guess the sources, I guess, of the water and you think you'd be doing? Are they your craft brewery? Where you going to brew your beer at? I mean, what kind of process do they have for water?
The water so far, from what I can tell in Memphis, is really very good, actually. Okay. There's a little bit of chlorine in it, so you got to remove that. But the base water, Todd can actually probably tell you more about it than I can because he's born and raised in this area. But just having been here not too terribly long, it seems like it's making some pretty good beers for the folks about Memphis. So
cool. That's good.
The water in Memphis is actually literally some of the best in the country. It comes from aquifer sands that are where the groundwater has actually been, filtered itself, which makes brewing beer and manufacturing food products and just great, clean drinking tap water without having to put anything into it. Really is a huge benefit to the Memphis, Shelby County area. So.
It just helps when you have great water. You can't make good beer without good water.
You can. It's just very hard. It's just much more difficult.
But you have to filter it like 4 times and then do reverse.
And then add all your minerals back into it after.
Like
it's just a little trickier.
Water,
It's just
where we are in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, there used to be Frank Jones Brewery, and he it was like in the late 1800s, and he produced the most ale in like the U.S. Like at one point he was selling the most ale in the U.S. out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They had like railroads going into his brewery and coming out, and the water was delicious, and it was great for beer, and that's what we're using too. And I really don't I have like a basic filter, but the water's great. It just depends on where you are, and but to make good beer, you need good water.
Absolutely.
So, and another question that how do you view like big beer and how craft beer compares to their product? I mean, what do you see the differences in? I'm trying to convince a lot. I mean, that's another reason why we're doing this podcast is I see a lot of beer sold in suitcases and a lot of it's like 90% of the beer aisle in big large stores, and kind of annoys me. And I'd like to try to have people drink more craft beer. And what would you say to those people? Try to convince them.
Allison, you gonna hop in here?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, I fully appreciate. As a brewer, I want people to drink craft beer, for sure. But I would say, like, for myself personally, I drink plenty of domestic lagers, and I do that for a couple reasons. One, just to sort of stay on top of what's out there in the market, what the competition is. And then also, I always fancy myself a beer lover and not a beer snob. So I'll never turn down a beer, no matter what kind of beer it is. But that being said, obviously as a craft beer brewer, I do want to perpetuate craft beer, not only my beer, but other people's craft beers as well. It's just sort of like any kind of product, I guess, on the market, whether, it could be anything, and it has that craft aspect behind it when the people that are making the product and it's not just a big giant nameless faceless entity. I think that does mean more in terms of quality and in terms of like product consciousness. Like if someone buys my beer, I know I worked really hard to make it. I know that we're going to take part of the money they give us for the beer and use it to help other people. We're going to use it to drive the industry forward. So there's lots of benefits to drinking craft beer. However, if you see me with an American light lager in my hand, it might happen. It might happen. So.
Well, there's a
I'm a
time and
proponent
place
for
for all
all
that.
beer.
Yeah, there's a time and place for all that. Like if you're at a ball game or something like that, or it's really like you said,
Absolutely.
it's really really
Yeah.
hot outside, or you might want a lighter beer. But
I don't shame people for drinking any beer. My brother drinks natural ice. I think it's disgusting, but I still drink it with him because that's my brother and that's what we do. So
yeah, it's a well, it's beer. It's a bonding thing.
Yeah.
So beer is good. Beer is good. How about you?
Yeah, my take on quote unquote big beer is, I support. I like the idea of craft just from the standpoint that I have friends that own restaurants. Instead of being part of a big, conglomerate, they have carved out their area of what they do, and they do it well, and they're busy and employ people and help out and give back and all fun things around being a business owner. I like big beer from the standpoint of they're big marketing and ad companies, and they do a great job of kind of showing, from a marketing standpoint, some fun and interesting things that we are able to take our brand, which is Delta Sunshine, around this part of the country, and the music that comes from it, and the fun, just good feelings, and we can equate that over into our product. And I think that more and more beer drinkers that drink the big beers are going to find craft beers that they like, and especially in this part of the country, people really, really like to support local businesses. And so I think that once we get out in the marketplace and people become more aware of kind of what they're looking for, their type, their taste, and we educate restaurants more on how to sell to the customers that come in, whether they're sitting at a table or sitting at a bar, that the craft beer industry will continue to grow, just through more education, being out there, kind of helping it all the way down to the consumer. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we try to push the local aspect of beer, not just, and you talked about restaurants as well, supporting local, which I think is very important. And we try to use local ingredients and talk to local restaurants as well, and I think that's very important in the craft beer scene.
oh yes.
So last question for both of you. Like what's your favorite type of beer? Like what's your favorite style of beer? And if you had a favorite, like an all-time favorite, and if you see any beer out there that you like today, maybe I could pose that to each of you.
Sure, I'll go first. Go ahead, Allison.
Oh, okay. I'll just say real quick. First of all, my favorite kind of beer, it usually is like whatever good beers my friends have made. When a friend is like, "Hey, come try this beer I made. It's really awesome." Like those are my favorite beers for sure. And I'm a pretty fickle gal. I don't have a certain style that I love. I just like really well-made, clean beer. And if I know the people that made it, that to me makes it a better beer. So
Yeah.
that's all I got.
Yeah, I'm kind of dovetailing off what Allison said. It's a really well-made beer, and I've got since this whole love affair with craft beer for me started in Missoula. I gotta give a shout out to the guys at Big Sky Brewery, because Moose Drool's probably Still one of the beers that I always love to get when I get into the Western United States. So, yeah. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Rooster's a good beer.
What's your favorite, Mike?
Mine? I like all kinds of beer. It depends. That's a question that I can't answer, I guess. It depends on what I'm
It's too
eating,
hard as a
or it's too
brewer.
hard. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Because I like all kinds of beer. The
What are you
sours.
drinking right now?
Me, I'm drinking Gatorade right now. I got to do the podcast after. I'll have a beer. But it depends on what you're eating. Which complements the food and the food aspect too. I'm Italian, so I like to infuse stuff in beer. I also like to eat, and I like certain beers for certain types of food. And it depends on what you're eating. If it's a spicy food, maybe want an IPA. If I'm like having a burger, maybe I'll have a stout or something. It just depends on the type of beer, the type of beer and food, that you can do. But as long as it's good beer, like you said, and if you know somebody and locally and they made it, and it's knows good stuff in it, and they take pride in it, that's the kind of beer I like as well.
Yeah.
So
Pride.
that's a good answer.
Important.
But all right, guys. Well, I think we came to the end of our session here, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about your adventure, and hopefully you'll be cranking the beer out soon. And tell everybody where they can get in touch with you if they want to, connect with you guys.
Yeah, of course. They can go to the website at www.deltaSunshineBrewing.com. And they can find us on all social media sites as well at Delta Sunshine Brewing Company. So
I think you're on Facebook too, or?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as a full functioning website up and running.
Great. And then you'll keep us posted on the progress, and get those the list those states out where you're going to be in, and we'll look.
We will.
Look for your progress.
We'll
I gotta try to get some of your beer somehow. I'm up here in the Northeast. Maybe we'll swap. Like I'll send you some of my beer and you send me some of yours. But we'll do it via UPS or FedEx, because I'll be arrested if I do it via the U.S. mail. It's a felony, right?
Exactly.
Oh, right,
Which is crazy. I had another guy actually who was on one of the other podcasts. He's trying to build a platform where brewers can ship their beer directly to consumers, which is interesting. But it's a state by state thing.
There's a market for that.
It's a state by state thing. There's only a handful of states right now, but wine you can ship all over the place, right? It's kind of ridiculous. It's like wine you can ship from point A to point B, whatever. But beer it's a different story, which is silly. I think it's silly. We're going to get on our legislatures and get everybody to get on that and change that quickly. But I appreciate you taking the time, guys, today, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I wish you the best. And let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much.
All right.
It's been great chatting.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, that was Todd and Allison from the Delta Sunshine Brewing Company, located in Memphis, Tennessee. They're going to start out by contract brewing, which is probably a good idea because they're trying to kill it. They're trying to do 7 states at once, which is very aggressive, but more power to them if they can do it. And they want to open their brewery, I guess, eventually. But it's a very capital-intensive process to open a brewery. But they got big ideas, big dreams. So more power to them. If you like Craft Beer Storm, if you like this podcast, I hope that you would subscribe to it. If you can go on iTunes, Stitcher, leave a rating and a comment, that'd be awesome. That just helps us get the word out that we are here for everyone, and we're not just limited to the U.S. Trying to get that brewer from Vietnam on. That'd be awesome if I can get him on. But Allison's going to hook me up, and we're going to get him on. So leave us a review, a rating. That'd be awesome, and tell a friend, and let's get this thing moving. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.